Dealers, your training is everything. We don't put enough attention on training, even though it is the single biggest factor by which we can differentiate ourselves and our operations from our competition. In this episode, we're going to talk about 5 best practices that you can put into place today at your dealership to supercharge your training for 2026. We have a lot of crucial stuff to talk about to get 2026 going right. Stay tuned for this episode of Down Payment.
Welcome to Down Payment, the podcast for used car dealers. Prepare to learn something new about the industry that keeps us moving.
Check out all our podcast content on our social media channels. We are at Down Payment Podcast on YouTube, Down Payment Podcast on Instagram, and Down Payment Pod on X. Welcome back. In this episode, we're going to talk about supercharging your training. This episode is not a how-to-do training. This is an episode giving you 5 principles that you can readily apply to your dealership's operations to improve your training. It's not a how-to, it's a how to make it better. And training is something that, like, we're in the beginning of 2026. You want to set the new year off right. And training is so hard for dealers. We've talked about it in prior episodes, but it is something that is just a traditional challenge of this industry. I really want you to make training something that your dealership figures out how to do well in this year. And truly, our ability to deal with change and challenging stuff coming our way in this industry really hinges on our ability to adapt. And part of adaptation means that we can change the way our people do things through training. So I've got 5 principles that if you can employ these principles, your training is going to get better. And the very first one is lead by example. Leading by example is something that we've all heard probably all the way starting back in elementary school, but we don't actually put it into action the way we should. All of our operation, especially though people in leadership, especially people at the top, need to demonstrate how things are supposed to be done by leading by example. The do as I say, not as I do falls flat in this industry. Everyone has way too many examples of our leadership telling us the way things should be done, but not actually doing it the way it should be done. And there's excuses, there's all sorts of reasons why, but it creates the perception of 2 possibilities. One is the person in the leadership example doesn't know how to do it correctly, or number 2 is too lazy to do it correctly. Either way undermines your image, your impression that you're creating on your staff, and it's also, you're losing out on the training example. If you could show by example how to do something right, that demonstration itself is an example of implicit learning. We learn a lot from just watching how people that we respect and trust handle challenges, handle situations, demonstrate skills. It is absolutely imperative that you lead by example, that your leadership team leads by example, that your sales leads, that your senior staff all lead by example. So number 1, and probably the most important, lead by example. Number 2, train continuously. Stop thinking of training as something that we do once a month or every occasional sales meeting or something that we do every so often. We need to build continuous training processes into our operations. This means having ongoing learning objectives where we're using stuff like role playing and delivering feedback and managers providing coaching on an ongoing basis. Training should never stop. We're trying to constantly improve our performance, improve our skill sets, improve our knowledge bases, and improve our understanding of this industry. Train continuously and at all levels. We're constantly ourselves If you're the dealer, constantly working to train and improve your performance, senior managers constantly training, have things in place so that they continue to learn all the way down to the very bottom of your operation. You should have a knowledge-driven organization that trains continuously and uses it as a core skill. Next thing, our third item, best practice, reinforce standards. All of your employees should know what the standards are. They should know what the expectations are, and they should be enforced. And there should be corrective measures, whether it's additional training, whether it's coaching, whether it's mentoring, all the way up through the top of the disciplinary process. And the people that constantly violate our standards, we're getting out of our operation. But reinforcing standards is crucial to building that learning organization. If you don't reinforce your standards on an ongoing basis, it allows people to opt out of training, opt out of being an active participant in learning. And what you'll find is that your training no longer is delivering value because people have figured out these standards aren't being enforced. There's not a reason to participate. Don't take it seriously. It doesn't matter. And you undermine all of this work that you do trying to build training into your operation. Reinforce standards. Make sure that everyone knows the standards and is held accountable to the standards. And that is from the bottom of the organization through the top. Next principle, our fourth principle, is focus on the goal. This is a mindset shift. We have to have a mindset that we are trying to achieve, given objectives. And these business objectives become part of our sales objectives, which become part of our learning objectives, because we have an entire strategy around pivots and adjustments and modifications we are doing to our business. And from bottom to top, that means that at the top, you have certain business goals and strategies behind those goals. And in order to implement those, you have sales objectives. In order to be able to achieve your sales objective, you have training objectives, which become learning objectives when you're in training. And so everything is focused on that outcome that you are trying to drive through. Everyone should know the goals. Everyone should know the objectives. Everyone should have a mindset towards driving towards that. And we use all of these different HR tools, of which training is a big part of, in order to get there. And then finally, fifth principle is measure the impact. And we measure the impact on multiple different levels. First of all, at the base level, is our training being well received? Are people going to this training and going, you know what, I'm learning something. This is valuable. Or are they all rolling their eyes and you have something going wrong? You might have the wrong people in training, and you need to get people that are more receptive to training on your sales floor and in your operation. It might be that the training itself is defective and you need to make modifications to that training. But you want to measure the impact on that base level. Is it being well received? Are people using it then? That's the second level. Are they actually then, when they're meeting with the customer, implementing the tools or strategies that you trained them in? And then the third level of impact, is it improving your business performance? And so we're measuring the impact of training on three different levels at least. One is that base level of the training. Is it being well received? Are people learning something from it, at least in the class itself? Second, are they actually implementing it in practice? That's the second level. And then the third level, is it helping drive my business towards our goals, our sales up, our costs down, whatever your metrics that you are looking to see affected by that training, are you driving towards that goal? So to recap, we talked about leading by example. We talked about training continuously. We talked about reinforcing our standards. We are talking about focusing on the goal and having a mindset to get there. And then we talked about measuring the impact. If you can implement these 5 principles in your training, you're going to have a lot of high impact training this year in 2026. I would love to hear your thoughts on how to make your training better. There's a lot of different things that we need to be doing. Would love to hear what you have to say. With that, go sell some cars. It's been another episode of Down Payment. Check out our podcast on all our social media channels. We are at Down Payment Podcast on YouTube, Down Payment Podcast on Instagram, and Down Payment Pod on X.
Thank you for listening. Down Payment, the podcast for used car dealers, is a production of Meta Financial Services Incorporated.